This is going to be a very personal edition of the Speakdom Saturdays. Now, obviously, most of these are personal. That's the whole point. Because I know there's people out there who can feel my pain and who can feel my message, both the good and the bad. This is going to be extra personal. So I want to talk about why I hate smoking. Now, when I say smoking, I'm talking about cigarettes specifically, not like marijuana or whatever. Obviously, there's other things you can smoke that are pretty bad for you, but I'm specifically talking about cigarettes, which is the legal, I guess, smoking vice. And, I've had a lot of traumatic experiences happen to me in my life, a lot of very painful things that have shaped the person who I am, both good and bad. They have caused, me to change, life-changing moments. And I would say the passing of my parents is probably right up there. Now, I want to discuss that with you guys, and I want to discuss sort of how smoking ties into it. So, my parents died when I was younger. My mom died when I was 22. My dad died when I was 29. Okay? I didn't hit 30. And they both died from smoking-related illnesses, completely different smoking-related illnesses. My brother died last year, and I didn't even know he died because I hadn't talked to him in a long time. I do have an older brother. Almost nobody knows this, including some of my own friends, because I haven't talked to him in years. Literally, like, years. He's not in my life. He's grown up, and he passed away last year, and I didn't even realize he had passed away until several months had passed. He had a wife and a kid who he left behind. He died from a heart attack. And my brother would smoke a lot. My brother smoked like a damn chimney, and it caught up to him. My mom died of cancer in 2006. My dad died of COPD emphysema in 2009. If you're following me over from Geekdom101, you're probably a Dragon Ball fan, and you know that Chris Ayres, the Dragon Ball Kai and super voice of Frieza, one of the voices, also has COPD and emphysema, and that's because he also smoked. And I hate smoking. And obviously, if you're out there and you're a smoker, I don't hate you, but I hate the act of smoking. You see what I'm saying? Like, I hate what smoking is and what it does to people. Smoking has affected me negatively throughout my entire life. So when I was younger, I grew up in the 80s, not every restaurant was like the way it is now, where it's pretty much non-smoking. You had smoking and non-smoking sections in some areas. And obviously my parents, when I was really little, would go in the smoking section. And my dad smoked a lot when I was around, when they were around me. When I was a little kid in the crib, they would smoke around me. And secondhand smoke is actually a pretty serious thing. Now, understand what I'm about to tell you. This is kind of a deep thing. I have a lot of mixed emotions about this because while I do love my mom and dad and miss them every single day, I do have a little bit of anger towards them because their smoking affected me. Because they couldn't quit smoking, they couldn't give up the fucking addiction, and they died and left me alone. And that actually has caused a lot of trauma in my heart and in my head. Not just that, but because they smoked around me so frequently, I wound up developing bronchitis as a result of that. So every year, for a long time when I was a kid, I had bronchitis, a really bad case of it. And even now into my adulthood, once a year, usually around Thanksgiving, I get sick. And when I get sick, and that's good, it's only once a year, maybe twice a year at most, but once a year I usually get sick. And it's because of this like acute bronchitis that comes back every year. And what ends up happening is I get like a cold or the flu, and then the cold moves down to my chest. And when you have bronchitis and you cough, it hurts your chest. It's the phlegm is not in your throat, it's down lower in your chest area. And it really sucks. I guess I used to, now I'm okay, but I used to get sinus infections all the time because of the smoking. Smoking has affected me. And I used to get, even to this day, I have issues coming to terms with this because, like I said, I love my parents, but I'm angry at them because they smoked around me, made me ill, and wound up losing their lives because of it. And I always considered it to be a very selfish thing. The worst thing I've ever seen is a woman who's pregnant smoking with the baby. That's like the worst thing. And my mom did not smoke when she was pregnant with me, but, it's actually kind of an interesting story. So my mom smoked when I was really young, and I remember she told me this story where basically what happened was when I was around 2 years old, my, I was walking around the living room. I don't remember this because I was 2 years old. And I was just learning how to walk. I think I had just learned how to walk. I don't remember. It was so long ago. When do kids learn how to walk? I don't remember. So, apparently, according to my mom, I banged my head on a glass table and was knocked out. I feel like Goku. I banged my head on a glass table and was knocked out cold. And I was laying there, knocked out cold, and my mom freaked out. Started calling 911, tried to resuscitate me. And she started praying to God. And she's like, God, I will stop smoking if you don't if you save my son. And I was okay. As you can tell, I'm still here. And my mom quit smoking for 16 years. Or 14 years. 14 years. When I was 16 years old, she picked up smoking again and got addicted to it. And I had a real problem with that. And I would often catch her smoking and she would try to hide it from me. She'd be sitting there with a cigarette in her hand. I would walk up, she'd drop it on the ground and put her foot over it. Or she would just hide it behind her, even though I could see it. I don't know if she thought I was an idiot, but I could see it. And it really bothered me that she knew how much smoking bothered me. She knew how much I wanted her to quit. She knew how much the school and television had been telling you about how bad smoking was. She knew all this. And she knew how bad it was, but she just couldn't give it up. And neither could my dad. And I got so mad at them because I saw them as being weak. I saw it as being a weak trait to not be able to kill your addiction. Now, I've never been addicted to smoking before. And if you're out there and you've had a smoking addiction, I don't understand your pain. So please don't get mad at me when I say this, but I also feel like if you have a lot of willpower, you can break anything. You can break any kind of addiction with enough willpower. And I felt at the time that my parents didn't really love me because they didn't think about the long-term repercussions of them smoking and how much pain they're going to cause me or even themselves. Now, when my mom was diagnosed with cancer, she died pretty quickly, which I'm not happy about. My dad was different. My dad was diagnosed with emphysema, and he survived for about 2 years or so before he finally died. But I saw him deteriorate. My dad used to be a very strong man. He went from being strong to being on oxygen to being in a wheelchair. He could only walk, could not run anymore. Then he started to only be able to walk short distances. Couldn't even go up the stairs without being totally out of breath. Think about that. Think about not being able to walk fast without being out of breath. Then it got to the point where he was in a wheelchair most of the time, or just walking very slowly. And I witnessed my dad slowly deteriorating, and it fucked with me. It really did. It messed with me. And I don't blame the cigarettes, but I do. Obviously, I'm never going to be a stockholder in big tobacco. I'm always going to hate Newports and Marlboros. I'm always going to hate it. Always. But I don't know if it's fair to blame the cigarette companies or my own parents. You know what I mean? I guess it was both. I know my parents love me. I know it. No denying that. But when you see this happen in front of you, it starts to fuck with you. It makes you wonder, like, okay, do you not understand what you're doing to yourself? And the problem with people who are addicted to stuff is that becomes their entire life in some cases. Especially bad addicts, like hard drugs. Because it's like logic and reason are out the window. They just got to get more. And unfortunately, when it comes to cigarettes, they're legal. You can go to any store and buy them. Are they expensive? Yeah, that's another problem too, is that my dad was always broke. My dad was consistently out of money. And part of the reason is because he bought so many cigarettes. Now, obviously, my dad wasn't a chain smoker. He wasn't like smoke. He was not that kind of guy. My dad would make one of his packs last 2 or 3 days. I know people who smoke 1, 2, 3, 4 packs a day. You know, Chris Ayers, he talked about it. He smoked like crazy. And now look, he's got oxygen. You don't want to be like that. You don't want to be like that, dude. Listen to it. You don't want to be like that. You don't want to be confined to a wheelchair. You don't want to be unable to breathe. You can't even go out. You can't even go visit your friends. Or you can't even leave town because you're waiting for a lung or a lung transplant. You don't want to be out of breath all the time. You don't. You don't want that. You don't want to hurt your children. You don't want to hurt your parents, your brother, your sister. You don't want to hurt your friends by not being there anymore. You want to be alive to see everything, see them succeed. My parents never saw me succeed. They saw me graduate college. They saw me get a good job, but they didn't see me succeed like how I am now, where I'm doing conventions and, I'm doing pretty well for myself in the Dragon Ball community, at least, and doing self-employed. They never got to see that because I started my channel a year after my dad died and didn't really become, like a big deal. If you want to call me that, it's up to you. In the Dragon Ball fandom, anyways, for another couple of years, a year and a half or so. He never saw that. He never saw it. And when I have kids, if I have kids, I want to see it. And smoking is just not... I hate smoking. I'm always going to hate smoking. And I'm thankful that at least our generation and people younger than us don't smoke as much. A lot of people nowadays don't smoke as much as we did, or as people did back in the 80s. And that's good. That's a good thing. So if you're out there and you're smoking, just think about what I said. It's not easy if you're addicted. There's lots of ways around it. Nicotine patches and Nicoderm gum. I don't know if any of that stuff works. Exercise, some people say, but just think about what I'm saying. Think about the pain that you have to deal with at some point, as well as your loved ones. It's the worst thing ever, and I hate it. Just being real. Thanks for listening.